Hey everybody, how's everybody doing on this Monday evening? Welcome to Zanzibar. Even though my tagline says Paranormal Among Us, I forgot to change that. Oops. Oh well, but at least I have the background and everything right and the open right. So, welcome everybody to Zanzibar. Third show tonight. I am simulcasting this on Paranormal Among Us as well because last time I didn't have a whole lot of viewers, and I thought maybe you know what, maybe people thought it was on Paranormal Among Us. So I'm going to be doing this for about a month or so, and asking everybody to go on over to Zanzibar and subscribe over there. Because eventually Paranormal Among Us is just going to be the paranormal stuff. Zanzibar is just going to be for sports and everything. So head on over there eventually. And unfortunately, I don't have that link on me. But anyway, have a great show for you guys tonight. Jim Johnson is here with us. Many of you guys know, everybody in chat knows BMR, Bigfoot Michigan Rob, is a diehard Lions fan, and he took it really, really hard this year that when the Lions lost. And I've been fascinated with the city of Detroit, with the Lions' success this year and last year, and it's so wonderful to see a packed house. Although it seemed like they've always had a packed house. Thank you, Sinfully. Thank you for putting the link up there for Zanzibar. Appreciate that. But it was great to see so much support for the team. As you know, here in St. Louis, we lost our football Cardinals and we lost the Rams. I doubt if we'll get a team back. We supported them, but it's just I miss having that local team right now to local NFL team to support. And before we bring Jim up, I want to say hi to Sinfully Wicked's here, Little Patty. How you doing, Little Patty? Three-peat, go Chiefs. We'll get into that in just a few minutes. T-Bone is here. T-Bone says, hello, Paul, go Canucks. I got the Blues game on right over here. They're playing the Vancouver Canucks. Hopefully the Blues kick your butt. Hi, Diane. How you doing tonight? And hi to everybody else who is lurking and not in chat. But please feel free to come on over to chat and say hi. Jason Finch is here. The Finchster. How you doing, Jason? And Roger Blair is here. Jill, how you doing, Jill? I know you. Anyway, let's bring Jim up. He is all ready and all decked out in his Detroit. Jim, how you doing, sir?
I am great, Paul. How are you?
Oh, fantastic. Thanks for joining us tonight.
Thanks for having me on.
And I have to say, I am very sorry about you guys losing this year. I had you guys. Trust me, BMR is a good friend, and he's a huge Lions fan. And I wanted you guys to win all year. I've been saying that the Lions are going to win the Super Bowl, and maybe I'm the jinx. I don't know.
It's you. There were a lot of people who wanted the Lions to win, and I would go so far as to say, can we call the Lions the new America's team? Maybe that's audacious. I don't know, but they sure had a lot of fans outside of Metro Detroit.
You know, I think a lot of people, like you said, a lot of people outside of Detroit, I don't want to say a Cinderella story, but I mean, you guys have come from not doing much over the last few years to all of a sudden you're one step away from the Super Bowl last year, fourth down play from the Super Bowl last year, yeah. And now this year, best team in the league. That never mind. But I mean, I think you guys had all of America basically behind you guys.
Yeah, it was heartwarming to see, as a almost lifetime fan, to see just the national level of support come in. Mm-hmm. And I remember getting all of the comments and posts on Facebook and the texts and everything. I mean, people got it. People understood I was a long-suffering fan. Mm-hmm. But then the more heartwarming it is, the more heartbreaking it is when it all falls apart in one game. And I mean, every team has a bad game. It just seemed to be the Lions' curse that it had to be. So, um, it was a disappointing end of the season, but
Mm-hmm.
I always say, you can't take away what the team has done. It applies to any team. You can't take away what they've done this year and last. And I'm nothing but happy for them. And that's why my tagline I put, I'm a gruntled fan, because I am not disgruntled. Those days, there were a lot of them, but those days are gone.
Yeah, I agree. And Simply Wicked, she's a Michigan. I'm not sure exactly where at in Michigan Simply is, but she's also a Lions fan.
Awesome.
Um, let's step back a year and talk about last year. Um, you guys live and died by going forward on fourth down, and I mean that she's in St. Clair Shores.
Okay.
So
She's an East Sider. I'm a West Sider.
okay, gotcha. But I mean, last year you guys you were a fourth down conversion away from going to the Super Bowl, and I think last year would have been you guys and the Chiefs would have been a fantastic matchup. But kind of talk to me a little bit about what your personal thinking was on that game, the
Yeah,
championship game against San Francisco.
you know, live by the fourth down, die by the fourth down, right? And
Mhm.
the thing was, what was heartbreaking about that game was, the Lions seemed to have it wrapped up in the first half, and if you remember on the
Mhm.
broadcast of that game, Fox or CBS or whoever it was, they were panning around, the stadium there, and they were showing like all these fans holding their heads in their hands at halftime and all that. And then the team came back and turned it on. And the irony was a big issue with the Lions throughout my time following them is they could never play a 60-minute game. And I think they played well throughout, but you know there's a reason you don't always go on fourth down. And
Mhm.
Dan Campbell lived by it, and he stayed true to who he was. And if he had to do it again, I'd say do it again, Dan. But you know you have to go by your mo, and they did. And it just, that was a time it didn't work, and it was a gut punch. But
Right.
in all honesty, I think here in this town, probably in any sports town, if they hadn't gone for it, you know, the talking heads would all be condemning him for that. So I'm all for it. I'm all in on Dan Campbell being all in, and I have no regrets. And it didn't end the way we wanted it to, but here we had nothing but pride for them.
Right. And you know, much respect for somebody who through the whole season stuck with it and did it exactly
Yeah.
the same. Didn't deviate from the course through the playoffs when putting points up on the board probably would have been a better idea in the playoffs there. But I mean that thing, and yeah,
Um,
damned if you do, damned if you don't. Really.
no, if you don't win, it was always the wrong decision. and
Right.
and it's funny. I largely stay away from like talk radio on sports, because it's all the Monday morning quarterbacks coming in,
Yeah.
shoulda, coulda, woulda. And anybody can do that. But why don't you put yourself on the sideline or on the field and see what you would do? And everybody can armchair coach, but when
Yeah.
a coach makes a seeming mistake, I go back to the Bobby Ross days, right? When he was a guy who, thinking, well, we'll take the overtime toss and go with the wind instead of taking the ball and winning the game.
Hmm.
Back when you had, first score wins, no, you had to go with the win. So I've lived through enough BS, Paul, where
Yeah.
where Dan Campbell's most egregious mistake doesn't begin to equal what a lot of our former coaches have done.
Oh yeah, by far. I mean, he has taken this team. What his first year was? What 3-2
3 and
14.
whatever, 13 or whatever it would have been. Yeah.
Yeah. And now to, what was he this year? 15-1.
Uh,
I mean,
yeah, 15 and 2, but yeah, yeah.
well,
So
yeah, 15-2 going into, but I mean, it's a incredible turnaround for your city, and talk about this year. How fun was it? Well, especially after last year, how fun was watching those Lions day in, day out,
yeah.
every Sunday?
So that's the thing. I kind of feel bad for the people who follow the team who aren't local because they don't get to experience the buzz in this town that that
Hmm.
that team would generate every week. Especially, is their schedule was prime time game heavy, and they had what, 5 or 6, I think, nationally televised games. On top of Thanksgiving, which is the
Hmm.
tradition here.
Hmm.
And every one of those games, there was just such a vibe here. I mean, the local news stations, they'd come on dressed in, the anchors would come dressed in their Lions wares, and it just, every business, there's a local bakery that would make Lions themed uh, delicious shortbread cookies, and it's just, this town immersed themselves
Hmm.
in the team, and it was just, it's a cliche, but it was like electric,
Hmm.
every game day, and even though those couple games they lost, the first one I think was week 2 in Tampa Bay, and that was early in the season, and then they went on that ginormous winning streak, and everyone forgot about that. So the
Hmm.
way to see this town was all in on the team was just electrifying. And considering all the bad teams I grew up with and followed, there was never anything like that here. It's not like KC or Dallas or New England, where the fans are used to this. They come to expect it, right?
Hmm.
Here we recognized what an accomplishment that was, especially in light of the recent previous seasons, like you mentioned. So I don't know. I mean, I don't have anything to compare it to. It was indescribable in terms of what it felt like to finally have a winning football team in this town. And even though they didn't make it the past 2 years, everyone here is already excited about next season.
And next year it could be a little bit tricky for you guys, losing your defensive coordinator, I believe, and probably a few other coaches along the way.
So yeah, you know what? Our offensive and defensive coaches, just, they obviously don't want to work in January, right? So sorry, Bears fans and Jets fans. I'm not the trash talking type, but you work for the Lions, you got to work Thanksgiving, and you got to work after the New Year. But now those guys, I'm you know what? I'm,
They get
I'm
holidays off now, and
exactly. The truth is, I think both the Bears and the Jets, are all the better for having our assistant coaches. But you're right. It presents a challenge now, but it also plays right into Dan Campbell's motto, right? It's like always find a way, bite a kneecap and all that stuff. He's if anyone will make it work with a new set of assistants, it's Dan Campbell. So while we hated to see Ben Johnson go and Aaron Glenn, I mean, I'm confident that he can put someone in place who can have some success of their own. And there's nothing much to say, but wait and see. I'm keeping the faith.
the team is definitely set up for much success over the next few years. Um, hopefully with Goff staying in at quarterback, and most teams will have a featured running back and then a significant drop off when it comes to the backup running back. You
Yes.
guys don't have that. You have two studs in running
Amen.
back, and that's one thing that I'm almost kind of concerned about. That one, will they? It doesn't seem like they have too big of egos to, I need all the carries. I need all the carries. No, I need all the carries.
No.
It seems like they're all in for the team winning. And but the one thing that I'm concerned is once contract time comes up, I mean, are they
Yeah.
gonna try and break the bank?
So yeah, and I honestly I should know. David Montgomery's contract, Jameer Gibbs' contract, I have no idea what year of the contract they're in. I
Mm-hmm.
just, I just hope everyone stays healthy in the off season and shows up ready to play. But you bring up a good point because, this is the town that, gave the world Barry Sanders, right?
That's
And
right.
and when you talk about a backup running back, I, I'd be hard pressed to say or to answer if someone asked me who was Barry's backup. I don't know. Did he even have
I have no
one?
idea. Yeah.
There was probably a whole roster of them, and that even goes back. You know, I'm an old guy, so I remember Billy Sims, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that was like a decade before Barry, but I mean, he was like the first like all-star running back the team had in my lifetime anyway. And
Mm-hmm.
I remember in that game, I think it was against Minnesota, where Billy Sims went down. Um, you know, everyone in this town knew it was over, and it pretty much was not that he could carry the whole team, but
Right.
there was always this like atmosphere of like concern where if your star player goes down, that's it, you're toast. But the Lions demonstrated this year they've got depth, and one of their running backs goes down, the other one steps up. Their defense, everyone knows how hard hit their defense was, and they stepped up. And I think I think ultimately, you know, your backups just can't always stand up the way your starters do. So the fact that the Lions got as far as they did, so beat up, was incredible. But yeah, I mean, if everyone can get healthy again, regardless of who's coaching them, I'm just happy the fact that we got our total offense and defense to look forward to next year.
Mm-hmm. And hopefully everybody stays healthy next year. I mean, of any team that was coming in the playoffs, I mean, you guys were the ones that needed that extra week off more than anything. And
Yeah, yeah,
I don't know if it was the extra week that got you guys, kind of off kilter against the. I call them the Redskins. I don't call them the Commanders. I don't like that name, Commanders. They're always going to be the Redskins to me.
sure.
So don't I'm an old fart. That's what I call them.
Washington football team.
Oh, that's even worse than the Commanders. Um, but it just seemed like they came out flat. And
Yeah, it does I've always wondered about that. Is a bye week good or bad? I think it benefited them in terms of their injuries. But
Mhm.
what no one talks about is, well, what about their starters who have been healthy and had this week off? I mean, everyone thinks it's a good thing, but you know, um, we've seen it before in the postseason. The number one seed comes back a little off kilter, like you say, and
Mhm.
some teams seem to adjust to it, some don't. The Chiefs, didn't seem to suffer any from theirs. But I think if I had to try to conjure up a reason, I would say the Lions aren't used to having the number one seed and a bye week
Right.
that comes with it, and could that have had an impact? I don't know. I mean, Jared Goff just wasn't Jared Goff in that game, and what was the reason? I don't know, but like I said earlier, I mean, everyone has a bad day. It's just that wasn't the day you wanted to have it.
Right. And not to take anything away from the Redskins. I mean, they're a fantastic team, and I mean they had time to plan for the Lions and everything. So maybe part of it was their scheme and their game plans that they brought into that game and everything. But you kind of brought up a good point here that with the bye week, the injured players were starting to get healthier, but the ones that were already starting were kind of on a roll. I mean,
Yeah,
they weren't for backups; they weren't terrible.
yeah, yeah. I think a bye week can hurt and harm at the same time. And I
Yeah.
think it just depends on your roster. It depends on your, on your coaching. It just, it depends what the coach tells the team to do on their week off, keep practicing or go play golf, whatever.
Hmm.
I think it can go either way, and there's just no way to
Hmm.
ascertain how it's going to impact a team
Hmm.
collectively. And it's no, I'm not one of the fans who think, hey, we got a bye week, we're golden. I don't necessarily think that. But going forward, I think, a lot of people in this town are going to say, well, maybe we don't want to be the number one seed.
Yeah, and you see that a lot in sports, not just football. I mean, for years the Blues were so good and always getting like the first or second. I saw that, T-Bone. Yes, Vancouver's up 1-0 over the Blues. I mean, they would always get the number one seed and everything, and they're usually gone by the first round. So, I mean, the old adage, just get in the playoffs and anything can happen. I mean, that's so true.
So yeah, the thing with the Lions is, I mean, I don't know where you were going to go with the discussion, but I think a big part of the Lions' past problems was the mindset of the team. All right,
Mhm.
so the Ford family's owned the Lions like forever, and that's all and well. But what I've always seen under Ford ownership in past days and past decades, when the team would show any kind of improvement, they would go from 4-12 to 7-9, or they would win a road game for the first time in 2 years after losing, 16 road games in a row.
Mhm.
They would get these little victories like that, but the team would celebrate like they won the Super Bowl. And they seem to always settle for not being the best, just being better than we were, being better than not sucking. And the problem was in this town, the fans ate it up, right? The Lions would go on a 4-game winning streak, and all of a sudden they'd sell out, and there'd be a waiting list for season tickets. And then, of course, they'd melt down again. And that back in those days, which weren't, all that long ago, that put me in the disgruntled fan category.
Mhm.
But what's been different under Dan Campbell is that whole mindset of settling for not sucking went out the door. And he preached, no, we're gonna win, and we're gonna win it all. And I think that's what any coach and any team has to do. And I think it was only starting under Dan Campbell's reign where he truly not only preached that, but I think imbued that in the
Mhm.
team's mindset, so that when they lost a game, they weren't going to be laughing it up and telling jokes in the locker room. They were going to be moping around and cussing and swearing and knocking
Mhm.
over the Gatorade bucket. But to come into these past few seasons knowing that no, any loss is unacceptable, I think they finally got it. And I think that manifested itself if you saw Campbell's last press conference where he's up there barely able to hold it together because it
Okay.
hit him right here, just like it did all of us. So I think there's been a genuine change in mindset with that team that I think is going to stick going forward, even after the Dan Campbell era.
I completely agree. And the one thing that kind of stuck with me when you were mentioning this was just be better than you were the last game or yesterday. I mean, that's kind of a life lesson. Whereas in
Yeah,
sports, you need to go out and want to win everything, because just being better than you were the last game, that's not going to cut it. You want to be out there. I want to win the championship, or it's a failed season
exactly.
in a lot of these sports. Um, so maybe that was the problem before. I don't know. I'm
I
not a.
think I think I'll tell you what, it was the 2011 season, and we had Jim Schwartz as our coach. All
Mhm.
right, and he's not one of my favorite people, but the one thing Jim Schwartz did was he brought respectability back to this team. That was 2011, so that was only 3 seasons out from the infamous 0-16 year, and they
Mhm.
actually went to the postseason that year. In fact, they clinched a playoff berth on a Christmas Eve night game, and I was there, and everybody was celebrating. But as cool as that was, it was a microcosm of what I'm talking about. It's like, hey, look at us, we made the playoffs. Towel, please. The end. And
Hmm.
they went, I think, down to New Orleans. It was that year, and they got smoked by the Saints. So you know that's why the team has always been so heartbreaking. And there was even a stretch kind of in between the Sims and Sanders era where I just kind of tuned out because I couldn't tolerate that. So in the intervening seasons, they showed just enough brilliance to kind of keep us all like hooked, but then they would never cash in on it.
Hmm.
And I think I like to think though those days are done. And you know it's like John Madden said one time. He says the thing about the postseason is every team but one ends their season with a loss, and
Hmm.
that doesn't mean failure, but to a coach like
Right.
Dan Campbell, it does. And I think to the previous Lions, um, you know, eras, hey, making the playoffs was the goal.
Yeah.
Didn't matter if they won or not. So I think those days are done. And like I say, I look forward to seeing how this mindset carries into the long term, even in 5-10 years when
Mhm.
Campbell may have moved on.
Do you think, well, I don't even think this is a fair question to ask at this point I'm going to go ahead and say in the off season for you guys.
Oh,
Do you
oh,
think,
yeah, yeah. Go ahead,
sorry,
Paul.
sorry, sorry, sorry,
Twist,
sorry, sorry.
twist, man.
Do you think, I mean, because there a lot, so much can happen. You don't know what the coaches are going to be like coming in. You don't know what kind of players you guys are going to pick up or lose or whatever. Do you think, 'cause some people have said that um, their window is closing pretty quick. Do you guys think that's the case in Detroit?
I personally I don't, and I'm not hearing a lot of that talk locally. I think like everyone knows and are saying here that Campbell's work is cut out for him.
Hmm.
They're going to have a new set of coaches, and I don't know, like I said earlier, where the status of a lot of our players are, if they're all going to be back next year.
Yeah.
But I think what's different this time is Dan Campbell always finds a way. He finds a way to do
Hmm.
it. No longer do we say, like when Barry Sanders walked away. When that guy retired, unexpectedly, like overnight.
That was crazy. Yeah.
It was nuts, and it was like a dagger through the heart here because we're like, well, what are we going to do now? There wasn't any talk of, oh, we'll overcome it, we'll find a way. There was just doom and gloom. And you know what, Barry Barry walked away right after I committed to buying season tickets finally. So that's so that's but so instead of Barry Sanders, and we went into the 2000s with such stellar coaches like Marty Morningweg, right? And I got to enjoy my season tickets watching some pretty bad football.
Do you still have your season tickets?
No, no.
No.
You want to know that story?
Sure.
So yeah. So sometime it was 90. So right, yeah, 99. I partnered up with a guy at work, and then kept them through 2008, that infamous 0-16 season, and um, and I let them go. And it was funny because the ticket office was calling me every day, trying to get me to come back. And I said,
Hmm.
I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it. I'm done. I'm done. You know, and they, the prices went up, of course, too, right? So I walked away from the '08 season. I'm like, hey, I don't need these tickets. I'm not going to go back. I'm done. And then we draft Matthew Stafford. Okay.
Hmm.
I'm like, oh, well, now, see there, you're dangling that carrot in front of us again. So I'm like, okay. So I never had season tickets again, but I did go to individual games, and I did see his home debut, and quite a few, nice games,
Hmm.
held by him, but
Yeah.
it wasn't like it is now.
No, no. And when I was shocked when they traded Matthew Stafford to the Rams, and subsequently I was pissed because that was after
Oh,
the Rams moved out to LA and they won the Super Bowl, which I didn't want them to do ever again.
yeah.
But that's a personal thing with St. Louis and the Rams.
Are you a disgruntled Rams fan, or
Um, I
disappointed, heartbroken
I
Rams
I
fan?
wouldn't. I'm not even a Rams fan. I'm just a disgruntled Cronky person. I mean, for those of you who don't know, he came in here and trashed the city, said all kinds of negative things about
Oh,
how
that's
how
right.
we won't support the team
Yeah,
when he didn't do anything to improve the team,
right.
and we still had fans showing up. And then he moved out to LA. I mean, when I think that was his plan the whole time, from when Georgia Frontier died and he took controlling interest in the team. That
Yeah.
was when he it was all bets off. He's going to LA, and they were just smoking us, and he never were going to stay here. And but that's a completely different story
Oh,
there.
he's serious. Well, because here, you know, we were a little skeptical of that trade, and
Yeah,
and and I everyone here loved Matthew Stafford. They still do, and we hated to see him go. And we're like, oh, we got this Jared Goff guy. Let's give him a shot, And what they kept saying here was, well, Jared Goff appeared in a Super Bowl. And
yeah.
whenever any sports commentator says so and so appeared in a Super Bowl, you know what they're really saying? They lost a Super Bowl.
Hmm.
So, not that there's anything wrong with that, as we say, but I didn't consider that a selling point. But then Jared Goff comes here and gets all settled in, you know, and starts doing gangbusters. And yeah,
Yeah,
Matthew Stafford gets his Super Bowl for the
unfortunately.
Rams, but then he starts struggling, and Goff turns it up. And as a fan of both these guys, I took no pleasure in seeing how Stafford just seemed to totally lose it in so many games. But we all look back now, Monday morning quarterback, and all say now, yeah, I told you we should have made that trade, best trade ever. But I'm telling you, most of those fans, when that trade happened, we're all thinking here that was a big mistake.
Yeah. Let's go back a little bit. You're a lifelong Detroitian. You've lived in
Um,
Detroit all your life,
we
or
don't have a word for that, but I'm a lifetime Detroiter.
okay. I started to say it in like St. Louis, and okay, I don't know what Detroit would be, but whatever. Um, what was it about the Lions that got you hooked? Was it something your father got you into, or what was it? How you got to be
Yeah,
such a big Lions fan?
that's a great question. I'm gonna say when I got hooked was when they picked up Billy Sims, and that was the 1980 season. And I was in high school then. I was a fan prior to that. My dad had taken us, to games, going back to Tiger Stadium. That's how old I am. But the Lions back then, they weren't great. They didn't suck. You could count on them finishing at a 500 record every year, and we were okay with that.
Mhm.
And Billy Sims comes along in the wake of the Lions' horrible '79 season, which I think they finished 2-14. I want to say Billy Sims comes in, and the Lions win 4 games in a row. And I'm too young to really. I was too young then to really remember if when the last time that had happened, but it sure was the first time I remember ever seeing a winning streak like that. And the town went crazy. So it must have been a while the way the town reacted. And um, the that again, everyone was jumping on the bandwagon, and even the Lions themselves. I forget who it was. A couple of the players put together a like their own little parody, not a parody. Queens, another one bites the dust. They
Oh
made
yeah.
their version of that got a lot of local airplay. And even as a high school kid, I'm thinking, don't they seem kind of cocky to be doing that after just winning 4 games? And sure enough, the team went be 5-7 for the rest of the year. But despite the disappointing end of the season, that was the first time I remember the Lions ever really turning it up and demonstrating brilliance. In fact, the opening day game, they went out to LA and beat your Rams. So before they were your Rams.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what hooked me pretty much for good, even though there were a lot of kind of bad seasons to follow. There was a couple strike years thrown in there. Like I said earlier, Billy Sims went down after a few years. He didn't come back. We had some dry years in between Billy and Barry, but pretty much since the Billy Sims era, I've been on board with the team.
Mm-hmm. I can only kind of talk about the crowds that we had at Rams games. The Cardinals moved out of here in '85, and I know I went to a few games at Busch Stadium when the Cardinals were here, but I don't remember a whole lot of not many sellouts for the Cardinals, and I know that we turned out pretty darn good for the Rams. Has that
Yeah.
ever been an issue for the Lions that they just weren't drawing good, even though they were going through some really bad years?
Surprisingly, they have always drawn very, very well,
Mm-hmm.
even in their worst years. And it's a big football town, and they wouldn't necessarily sell out. But to their defense, the Silverdome held 80,000 people. So, that was often tough to sell out, even when they were playing well. And back in those days, you had the NFL blackout rule, right? So there were very, very few home games that got televised in these parts because they couldn't sell them out. But it was both. It was kind of cool to see how devoted the fan base was, even during the leanest of times. But at the same time, I always felt that that was rewarding bad performance because good or bad, the you know the if the stadium didn't sell out, it came close. And a lot of people here felt that was a big disincentive to the Ford family, because the Fords thought that, hey, the fans are going to come whether we win or not, so we don't have to build a winning team. And I'm not accusing them of that. I don't know that to be true, but that was a very pervasive belief during those leaner times. And what I will say is the Ford family wasn't exactly doing a lot to dispel that discussion. So no, it's a sports town. I mean, people fill up Little Caesars Arena for the Red Wings, every night, and the Tigers draw well. The Lions, the Lions attendance kind of does not always seem to be a function of their performance.
That's good. I mean, that shows a lot about the fans there, that they are more of them are true diehard fans.
Yeah, and I mean, I didn't mean to interrupt. Just an addendum to
Good.
that.
You're good.
I fell from the faith because like I'm going to say, what was the last horrible season before Campbell? I think it was 2019. They went like 3-13 or 3-14, whatever it was. And I remember telling Jill, I said, you know what? I'm going to turn these games on every week, but I'm not going to
Mhm.
center my Sunday around them. I'm going to do housework. I'm going to do some writing. I'm going to do whatever I got going on. And there was, in 2019 through like up until the Dan Campbell era, I I fell from the faith, and
Mhm.
I figured if I could suffer through the strike seasons and the 2008 winless season, I've demonstrated my loyalty. But now, if you guys are just going to keep coasting and saying, "Hey, we don't suck," then I'm out. So it took Dan Campbell to bring me back, start buying the gear again when it was affordable. It's not now, and and so yeah, I was I excommunicate what's the term, excommunicated
Excommunicated.
myself for a time, but I'm back and I'm loyal.
Yeah. You know, we kind of have the St. Louis Blues, the hockey team here. They're kind of the fans are kind of I see very big similarities between the Blues and the Lions. The fans for the Blues, fans for the Lions. We are diehard Blues fans here, and we won that Stanley Cup back in 19, and this city went absolutely crazy.
Yeah,
I mean, you're talking about a couple 100,000 people in downtown St. Louis for the parade. I kind of picture the same thing happening in Detroit when the Lions finally get that. I mean, you guys had a taste of it for 2 seasons in a row.
yeah.
That town is going to go just ape
I,
shits.
I think you're right, and there's sort of a precedent because we had a number of Stanley Cup championships here, and I remember for the Red Wings, the parade down Woodward. I mean, I don't know what the attendance was, but it was
Mm-hmm.
insane. You couldn't
Mm-hmm.
get anywhere near downtown. I tried going to that first one and couldn't even find couldn't even get halfway there barely. So I think what's been demonstrated here before, is that yeah, you don't need a decades long drought necessarily
Yeah.
to bring out the fans to celebrate. But I think when the Lions, and I'm saying when the Lions bring home a Super Bowl championship, yeah, I think it will be pandemonium
Mm-hmm.
downtown, unlike anything the town has seen.
I have to show you this. I'll wait to the end of the show for that. It's not on topic with the Lions, but I just had to share something with you here in a few
Your
minutes.
show, your rules, man.
It's totally not has anything to do with football. Um, and you know what? I totally messed myself up on that too. I don't know where I was going to go with this.
I see. You
Um,
let your guest interrupt. You should never do that. Take control. I
well,
can I can juggle a football for a while you
there you go. There you go.
got a prop.
I
Got a prop.
I can't think of where I was going to go with this at all, but I'll just bring this up now then. So I have to. I bring this up every time I chat with somebody from Detroit. Um, Remember that World Series? What
I'm
was it?
sorry.
2000, 2000.
Hang on. I
Oh,
don't like.
sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Remember that World Series? It was
Oh, you so
Detroit.
suck, man. Please, oh man. You went there last time. I've been
I
on your
think I
show
did.
before,
I
buddy,
think
and
I
you
did.
went there last time. If we do this again, I'm coming on. I'm telling you, I'm gonna be prepared.
Hey, you got the Red Wings and all their championships. I have one with the Blues, but yeah, I
Fair
had to
enough.
do that. I'm sorry. I'm
You know
sorry.
what? No, it's all good. What's a sports show without a little trash talk, right?
A little bit, a little bit. But what? So you mentioned we're friends on Facebook, and I see you all over the place going to Tigers games, going to. I haven't seen you going to any Red Wings games.
No, we
Um,
typically do not attend Red Wings games.
yeah.
No, no reason. No reason. I'm a baseball football guy, more than anything else. So that's
Mhm.
primarily why.
Which do you like better? The
Between what?
Tigers going to baseball games or football games?
Oh, I gotta say baseball. Because the time was where that wasn't true. But
Hmm.
the thing about the Tigers is, they've started showing some promise in recent seasons, and
Hmm.
I just find watching a baseball game to be like the sports equivalent of like going to the park or having a
Yeah.
picnic. I find it to be a very relaxing activity. So when Jill and I go down there for the Tigers, it's like it's not like going to a football game where it's just it's just emotionally intense. So
Hmm.
I think because um, you know, as a I prefer baseball overall as a sport, just because of the kind of slower, easygoing pace, which is
Hmm.
more in line with my getting older. But that's not to say the Lions haven't kind of elevated themselves to get a little closer to that. And
Right.
ironically, if you want to talk about that World Series, I remember in 2006, it was, I won't get into my personal stuff, but I just come off a divorce, and I was kind of, my head was kind of coming out of the clouds, and I'm watching the postseason, and I'm like, why didn't I go down there for any of these? I should have been
Hmm.
down there, and
Hmm.
and I said, well, if the Lions, or I'm sorry, if the Tigers ever make it back to a World Series, I'm going to be down there. And then in 2012, they did that, and they got smoked by the
Hmm.
Giants. But I'm telling you that the two games they had there at Comerica, it was flipping magical, and
Yeah.
that belies the whole thing about going to a ball game for a nice quiet afternoon. It
Hmm.
just the buzz there was just amazing, and I remember sitting there, and I lucked into an amazing seat behind home plate for game
Hmm.
3, and there's all the local celebs. There's Jeff Daniels sitting there, and there was Kid
Hmm.
Rock sitting there, and Pudge Rodriguez was there in the front. The commissioner was there in the front, and I mean, I felt really, like self entitled, like, hey, all it takes is money to get a ticket like this. But I
Yeah.
remember just having this like, oh crap moment, thinking I'm at the flipping World Series, and I
Hmm.
couldn't believe it, and it just got me. It's like, oh my God, this is the World Series,
Yeah.
and ever since then, ever since that season, it's been like baseball's just seemed a little more magical.
Yeah.
But not saying anything against the NFL, because I flip and love the NFL, and
Hmm.
Jill can attest to it. There's not a game on TV that I don't watch.
I totally agree with you on that one. And, like I said before, vaguely remember dad taking me to some football Cardinal games. I could have, I know we were there for a Cowboys game and a Saints game. I don't know if we were there for any other ones. And I remember being really cold, but I really don't remember watching the game at all. But 2006 for the Cardinals, we had season tickets,
Uh,
and that was the first year they opened the stadium, and we went the whole year and everything, and that was so much fun. And then being at the World Series when they clinched the World Series win, standing there next to my dad, that was just, I mean, that was
that's
a
awesome.
highlight of my life. And
So
I mean,
you went to that World Series too, then?
yeah, yeah,
Awesome.
we were at every game. And there's actually my wife's a little sore about the game winning. What was it, game 5? Um, she couldn't go to one of the games, and it was rained out, and I had a friend go. And I didn't have the heart to give him his money back, so he went to the makeup game, and that just happened to be game 5. So I was down there in the midst of the madness of the Cardinals winning the World Series, and she was upstairs with our dogs.
That's a
So
very
that,
hard thing to live down, Paul.
yeah,
Are you are you still
every,
sleeping in that room on the couch or what?
I sleep down here now. I've redone the basement, so I can sleep down here now. Um, but yeah, ever since then, I'm like, if they were in the playoffs, and I'm like, I'll go to a game, but I'm not going to go to any kind of clinching game. I'm staying way out of it. I'm not going to do any of that. So
How far down the baseball rabbit hole do we want to go on this Detroit Lions episode?
how do you want to go?
So
I mean,
so
granted, I can have you come back when baseball season's starting, and we
I'd
could
love
talk
to.
more baseball.
I'd,
Yeah,
I'd love to. All I'll say is I did get to see the 1984 Tigers win the World Series against the Padres at Game 5. I was there
mhm.
with that. And my memory of that is I was there with both my parents and my best friend. And I'm glad we did that because they've all passed on since then.
Yeah.
And that's one of my like fondest baseball memories, aside from the fact that the Tigers, won the game. And
Mhm.
I was still in college, so pretty young and too dumb to know better. Um, I wasn't one of these rioters outside the stadium, but I couldn't resist hopping over the rail and grabbing a chunk of turf. And
Mhm.
we almost got nabbed by a cop on horseback, but got away, and I got a big chunk of turf, and I was all happy and celebrating, and we were walking out to the car, and everybody out there is like, "Oh, give me a piece, give me a piece, give me a piece," and I had this big, I don't know, I mean, probably bigger than this, probably
Mhm.
bigger than I can show on this screen, but it was a good chunk, and I ended up with maybe like this much. But I said,
Oh.
I said, you know what? I mean, I'm sharing with the fans who weren't even inside the park, so why is that a bad thing?
Mhm.
I still have. I can't say I have that turf anymore because it's long since just dried up dirt.
Yeah. Uh-oh. He froze up. Are you there, Jim? He seems to have frozen up. And it looks like he's frozen up on YouTube. I have it on the other monitor there. Froze. Well, looks like he did. Hopefully he will fall back out and come back on. While we are waiting for this, I will keep an eye on that. Here is, I'm gonna get the link to his channel. Oh, he went away. Okay, so this is Jim Johnson's channel. I'm putting it in chat. Bear with me. Can't talk and write at the same time. Oh, did that wrong. See what I mean? Can't talk and chat. Jill, I hope he comes back. Go turn the heat up or something. um, so here's Jim's channel. Go ahead, go on over and check that out. I had him on. So before I did paranormal stuff, I had this channel, Zanzibar, and it was just kind of a fun show. It had all kinds of different topics on there and stuff. It didn't last too terribly long, but I had Jim on there, and we talked about our love for Trans-Siberian Orchestra, a lot of his music collection, and all kinds of fun stuff. So hopefully Jim can come back, and if not, oh, he said he lost power. Okay. Okay, so, well, I was gonna start wrapping it up here soon anyway, um, but my thanks to Jim Johnson for coming on. I do have his link in the chat. I will put it in the show notes and I'll update that. So make sure you go on over there and subscribe to him. Thank you all so much for watching. I appreciate everybody on here. Also, if you guys are watching this on the Paranormal Among Us show, our channel, please head over to Zanzibar and subscribe over there. Like I said earlier, I think I said it earlier. I'm going to start kind of doing this on both channels for maybe a month or so until I can get going a little bit, and then it'll just be over on Zanzibar and not on Paranormal Among Us. So I'm dropping the link to Zanzibar in the chat. There it is. So for those of you that are on Paranormal Among Us, if you could jump over, click that link, jump over to Zanzibar and subscribe over there, I would greatly appreciate that. So anyway, thank you, Jason. Thank you, Jason. Awesome. Jason's already jumped over there and subscribed. So thank everybody for watching. Tex is here. Hey, Tex, how you doing? And appreciate you being on here, brother. And I will get out of here before your show starts. Make sure you head on over to Texas Front Porch. Those of you, actually, most everybody on Zanzibar side as well. No Tex. So head on over there to Texas Front Porch. Hi, Tina. How you doing? Good to have everybody here. So that's it. That's all we have for tonight. Hope you guys enjoyed it. My thanks to Jim Johnson for coming on. It's been far too long since I chatted with him. A couple of years since I had him on here. But he'll be back for baseball season and talk some baseball. Detroit Tigers, St. Louis Cardinals. We might have a few other ones on here. So Jim's a good guy. I appreciate everybody coming on here. So all right, guys, have a great show, or have a great night. Don't forget, head on over to Texas Front Porch here in about a half an hour. So we will see you all. I don't have an outro for this one. Thought I did. Oh, well. All right. See you guys. Have a great week. Appreciate y'all.